We hire, 130,000 people a year in Tesco. That recruitment sits with us. And it's not just delivered out of India. It's delivered out of UK, delivered out of Budapest. It's delivered out of India. So it's how do you work together across the different geographies to deliver a business outcome. 100% of Tesco's payroll, £6 billion of Tesco's payroll is delivered out of here.
Oh.
We could be in the front page of every newspaper if we don't get that right. 400,000 colleagues, right? You have to get it right. It's a heinous crime in a GCC when you are sitting on so much data on finance, customer, your products, your people. And then if you don't connect the data, then it's a crime. Because then you're looking things in silo. And the beauty of GBS and GCCs is how do you connect it? How do you connect the data and create that ecosystem that gives you more prescriptive and more precise insights that is actually tangible and actionable. Because insight cannot be that you can't take an action. So therefore, how do you make it actionable?
Correct.
And that's our real key focus.
Hello and welcome to GCC Unplugged, the podcast where real leaders share raw insights on how global capability centers are shaping the ecosystem of India. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by a true pioneer in the space, Dr. Sumit Mitra, CEO, Tesco Business Solutions and Tesco India. Sumit has steered Tesco's India GCC journey from traditional sales services to a full-fledged engineering and innovation hub. And today, we are going to look at his personal journey, the Tesco's journey, and also the broader ecosystem and what his thoughts are about that. So, Sumit, thank you so much for joining us here. It's
Absolutely.
a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So let's start with something that really intrigued me. You have a medicine degree, and then you move, you did business, and eventually you're here. Where did this transition happen and why? I mean, what brought you to this field?
Let me tell you a funny story. When you're born in the 70s in Bengal, you're rubber stamped as soon as you're born to either be an engineer or a doctor.
Okay.
Nothing else will suffice. So I was almost in a comatose journey in science to be this doctor. And it was almost the process. It was meant to be. So therefore, I did my schooling in Calcutta, where I was born. And then I moved to UK to pursue my degree. After studying medical sciences, I realized that this is not something I wanted to do. The reality kind of hit. And I felt I was more excited about entrepreneurship, business. And while I was a student at university in Scotland, I set up my own, in partnership though, my own Indian restaurant.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm quite enjoying the business side of things. So therefore, I almost positioned it with my parents that I want to do an MBA. They didn't understand why I wanted to do an MBA. So I explained that I want to go into hospital management, which actually I wanted to do. I thought I'll go into management to do my MBA, and then I applied for 20 odd jobs, didn't get any. So I thought, okay, I need to earn some money here. So therefore, I applied through the MBA fast track program of number of organizations, and BT was delighted to have me because of my medical background, and they were doing some big contracts with NHS. So they got me in, and so the rest is history. And I was very excited because we were at that sort of time of internet revolution and sort of fiber optics getting researched, broadband. So I thought I want to be right at the heart and center of that journey. So that's where I started my career.
So you are one of those who can still very authoritatively tell which medicine to take if I have a cough or cold or something, or you've completely erased that
unless
training.
You want me to be in jail and you want yourself killed. It was almost 30 odd years ago. So yeah.
So tell me,
but I do experiment on my children.
Okay.
They're still alive. So,
So yeah, so we can take it as a validation, right? So let's tell me, where in this journey did you realize that GCCs are not about just cost? It's more about strategy. When was this? Because for a long, long time, GCCs were, and actually, just the back office. It was
yes.
about cost.
So look, I started the GBS GCC concept. GBS is just let me explain the difference. The GCC term is very much used in India, which is about setting up a capability center.
Correct.
Which is fine when your multinational corporation is in one country or two or three countries. But when you have a very global multinational enterprise across multiple languages, multiple geography, then you almost need a GBS model because the Indian model supporting globally will not suffice. You need the language capability, etc. So BT was across 160 odd countries. So therefore, I kind of pioneered and strategized with the board to say, look, let's set up a in-house GBS model rather than working with hundreds of different suppliers. I felt that us being closer to the customer, we can create more value. So it was a journey where we were moving work and there was a big push on cost savings. So it became a cost saving journey.
Mm.
I did that for 5, 6 years with BT, and then Tesco came into play. It was then I realized that India cost was going up, and India wasn't about labor arbitrage play; it was an intellectual arbitrage play.
Mm.
So for me to create that value, it was important to hire the expertise
Mm.
within each area. This is not about doing transactions. This is not about transaction can be automated. So
Mm.
this is about really creating that differentiator for the company.
Mm.
So I almost pivoted
Mm.
when I had the conversation with my CEO, Dave Lois, at that time. I pivoted the whole conversation saying, I don't want you to judge me on the number of headcount or cost. You should judge me on the value and skills that I create and the margin upside, the
Mm.
incremental revenue, incremental cash that I drive for the business.
Mm.
So that's where I thought, this is the kind of pivotal moment really
Mm.
to switch the whole narrative from labor arbitrage to intellectual arbitrage and value creation.
I think you've spoken about this intellectual arbitrage earlier too many a times. I think you were quite uh, focused on this. So how do you really put into practice at Tesco?
Yeah. So if you think about the journey that we have taken in Tesco, I've been there 8 years now. And in 8 years, if I fast forward to today, if I look at the quality of work that we do, let me start with the quality of work. 100% of all architectural design of 5,000 stores and beyond is done in Bangalore.
Mm.
There's no other architects anywhere else. So there's no checking the checker.
Mm.
So the whole capability and skill set of architecture sits with GBS. 80% of entire group finance, whether it's treasury, tax, business partnering, FP&A, cash ownership of end-to-end cash
Mm.
sits with us.
Mm.
Then if you think about the entire people, the whole recruitment,
Mm.
we hire, 130,000 people a year in Tesco. That recruitment sits with us. And it's not just delivered out of India, it's delivered out of UK, delivered out of Budapest, it's delivered out of India. So it's how do you work together across the different geographies to deliver a business outcome. 100% of Tesco's payroll, £6 billion of Tesco's payroll is delivered out of here.
Oh.
We could be in the front page of every newspaper if we don't get that right.
Yeah.
400,000 colleagues, right? We have to get it right. 100% of Tesco's pension is done from here. All customer supplier contacts, colleague contacts, whether it's on social media, whether it's on voice, whether it's on chat, whether it's on email, is managed by us. The whole supplier life cycle, from finding the right supplier, setting that supplier up, doing the supplier due diligence to say whether they're fit to work for Tesco, the supplier due diligence, setting up a supplier, managing million promotion for Tesco Group, commercial income, supply chain, distribution, booking online slots of our 7 million, 8 million business, our quick commerce. It's all done. And then horizontally, if I look at that, engineering support, we made a big pivot from service to engineering. 90% of our colleagues are engineers.
Right.
That's the intellectual arbitrage. Then the data science, AI, analytics, building products that will create that differentiator for Tesco is done. But that's the fundamental. That's not the end of. The end here is about how do you build. So that gives you the business content. If you bring the right skill, right knowledge, right attributes, you can build the content. But the business context is really important. You can't sit in India and not understand what's happening in the UK geography, UK market, the geopolitical situation. Otherwise, how do you deliver? How do you execute? So what we did was we focused a lot, and I really pushed hard on building the business context. So which means that we were sending a lot of people to UK to work with our stakeholders and partners to go and sit in a store for a couple of days in a week to really understand how that whole, go to the distribution centers, see how foods are distributed. So what that does is when you're doing your day job, it builds the business context and you are relevant to what you're doing. To me, that's the intellectual arbitrage rather than, oh, I'm a brilliant chartered accountant and I can do X and Y.
You spoke about 90% of your colleagues being engineers at Tesco. Just unpack that for me. That across roles, how do they function into?
So if you think about technology, the biggest technology team for Tesco Group sits in India.
Okay.
Now they have different parts of technology. You have your data science and analytics team, which is looking at our data platforms and engineering and working on data science and insights. Then there is the enabling team, which are looking at the retail platform that we are building across entirety, rolling out whether it's finance system, our colleague system, supplier systems. We build a lot of those sort of things that we feel creates a differentiator and IP. We build it in out. So that's the engineering skills and data skills that we need to build those units. So, and then we also have teams that are looking at sort of the tools that we need around club card, around our GHS order. So one of the inventions that we've done, we have our own product called Bumblebee, which helps our drivers to actually create the most effective journey planning and routing to deliver our products. And that's just one example. Another one, if I talk about my AI team, our enterprise analytics team, we call them, they've built. These are, very clever AI engineers. They built something called a cost intelligence model, which tells us ingredient of every single product that we sell and their cost. It's real time. So if I'm selling a bread and buying bread from a supplier, I know the ingredients of the bread. It's yeast, it's flour, because we have a recipe for our own product, so we know what bread is made up of. What it does, it scours the web, it looks at the cost price and builds a bottom-up cost price for each of those products. And we are able to have a better conversation with our supplier.
Right.
These are proprietary tools that we build ourselves. Another example I'll give you is AI for quality. So real time, my CEO is able to see how each of the products are doing from a quality perception perspective. What are the customers saying? So we scour the internet, we look at the contact center calls that's coming through, the chat conversations, the email. And then at real time, we are able to say, okay, what is the customer perception on milk? What is the customer perception on tea? And then we are able to drill down to say, where is the noise coming from? Is it across the entire Tesco estate? Or is it 5 stores? Is it 1 store? Which supplier is delivering? How is our competitor doing against that? And then we are to take a very precise action. Because if you think about data and science, data is only good if you do something with it. It's all about converting data into insights and insights into action. Because and a decision in the middle. So you can create as much insights if you want, but you don't take a decision, then the data is useless. So therefore, what we are good at is helping business to take those decisions. And then through our operations and the business context understanding, is we make sure that those decisions see the light of day. And that gets converted into our P&L. So that's the beauty of.
I like the name Bumblebee, by the way. That's a very friendly name to give to the thing for obvious reason. And yeah, so as you said that if even if you have all the information, but if it's, I mean, no action is taken, it's a criminal waste of information that you have.
And it's a heinous crime in a GCC when you are sitting on so much data on finance, customer, your products, your people. And then if you don't connect the data, then it's a crime, because then you're looking things in silo. And the beauty of GBS and GCCs is, how do you connect it? How do you connect the data and create that ecosystem that gives you more, prescriptive and more precise insights that is actually tangible and actionable? Because insight cannot be that you can't take an action. So therefore, how do you make it actionable?
Correct.
And that's our real key focus.
So tell me, what's the real risk that you face right now? Probably as Tesco or the industry when it comes to really governance, analytics, data, especially. What are those real risks that you face?
So let me start at a sort of a macro level first, and then I'll go into the GCC. The world is not the place which we knew 10 years ago, right? So there is geopolitical tension, tariffs, you name it. And there are sort of microcosm of those issues happening in each of the country where you operate. Then if you look at sort of the pressure on oil and gas and kind of what's going on, there are a lot of headwinds that hitting the business every year. Cybersecurity is another problem which is kind of going on. And we can't be rabbit in front of the headlines. So therefore, there are steps that we need to take as GCCs. And it's the danger that I see is we become a hamster on a wheel. And then we continue to do the same thing over and over again and talk about cost saving or labor arbitrage. To me, first is about building a building block that makes the business resilient. How are you resilient against all the changes? What actions are you driving? How are you managing those risks? How do you make sure you deal with the headwinds that are coming in for your business? How are you making sure that you have enough controls placed in the business to manage what's happening? Theft and many other things. What is happening around the business? How do you control that? So that's one. Second is, do you have the right talent? It is never about headcount. It's about skill count. So how do you build the right capability? And I call it 4Bs: build, buy, borrow, bought. So things that you need to build internally, you have to build because it's a differentiator. There are things that you need short term that you go and buy from partners that you have in the ecosystem, startups and many other companies. Borrow, sometimes you need to borrow and take support from individually. You may decide that it's only a temporary thing that I need. And then bot means robotics, where you think you can use AI or robotics or digital transformation to automate. Because people don't go to university to do spreadsheets. So how do you eliminate anything that is task-based, rule-based, unstructured? How do you structure it so that your intellectual colleagues who come in can actually make decisions and actually find the job meaningful? And this is the danger if we don't evolve to that state. And we will end up doing the same thing over and over again, and we will cry about attrition, or it's a talent war out there, let's increase the salary, let's do this and everything else. So I think it's important to give people the quality of work, and it's a result of a very clear strategy.
So, staying on probably the same note in today's world, and now that India is looking up to GCCs actually as the next big thing, both in terms of revenue and employment as well. How how does one differentiate between a transactional GCC and a future ready GCC? What are those?
Yeah.
You know,
So look, you have to start somewhere, right? And the start is always, and I'm not going to shy away from saying there is a labor arbitrage and a cost play, right? But don't make that a long-term play.
Right.
So first, your business case is all about saving cost and building a capability center, because nobody's going to invest 100 million pound if there is no return
Right.
in this current climate. So let's start with that. But then how do you get out of that? You start building the capability, but then very quickly shift from saying, I manage SLA, and divide yourself to say, there are three things that we do. There's certain things we should lead on for the business because we have the right capability, right talent, and right intellectual horsepower. Second, there are some things we will partner, we'll work together to deliver a business outcome. And the third thing, we will be in service of, whether it's payroll, fine. There's certain things we'll be in service of.
Right.
So we have to be very clear with that. And then overall, I call it the big six. For me, it's about how do I create value? And to me, value creation is three things. One, how do I drive incremental revenue for the business?
Correct.
Second, how do I deliver incremental margin for the business? And this is not cost avoidance. This has to be audited.
Right.
This is about clear incremental margin that can be seen in the P&L. The third one, how can I deliver incremental cash? Cash is king. So those are sort of value creation. Then how do I improve colleague experience? How do I improve supplier experience? How do I improve customer experience? And then the final one is around how do I build net new skills that's not available elsewhere. So when you move that journey and when you convince the business that this is your the measure of success, no longer about paying supplier on time, that's a given, that's your bread and butter, you'll do that anyway. But how do you make that paradigm shift to actually deliver those values and those KPIs? That's when you know that you've shifted the gear.
Now, while you're doing all this, what comes first, or if you can put them in chronological order, process, talent, or technology?
Great question. So I look at technology as a bullet train. You have a bullet train, you have AI, you have many other new technology. But a bullet train is only good if you have tracks. Because you don't have a track, bullet train ain't going anywhere.
Right.
So therefore, the two tracks, I call it, number one is culture.
Okay.
Now, what is culture? Culture is how an organization behaves when CEO is not watching. So how do you build that culture that is ready to adopt and adapt to change? How do you build that? Second is your processes. So if your processes are not right, doesn't matter how good your technology is, it's going to fail. So process is about, AI is not a tool that you bring in to connect two processes together. So AI is about reimagining what your world will look like. So, and how would if you had a white sheet of paper, forget about all your legacy systems, have a white paper and think, if you're rebuilding this, what would it do? And then how can you use AI to build that? And then you may have to build APIs, etc., to connect to your data sources. But how do you build that becomes really important. And that's the kind of the three things. But then there is also a wraparound around that is having a seat on the table. It's really important. A lot of the GCC leaders says the business not listening to us. They're telling us what to do. But you need to have that conversation. You need to take ownership. You cannot be the victim. When I joined Tesco, I was very clear that this is the vision, this is the strategy. So when you are going for an interview process to go for that job as a GCC leader, it's very important to put your cards on the table to say, this is my vision. And does the organization vision matches with yours? If it doesn't, then maybe it's not the right job for you. So therefore, the vision alignment is really important. And I always say, if you don't have a seat on the table, bring a deck chair.
That's very interesting. So, you love writing, and I've read a lot of what you've written, and you've written about leadership DNA for the next decade in GCCs. Um Tell us a little about it, and how do you look uh, for when hiring or promoting talent within your organization? Is how does that translate?
Let me talk a little bit about future leadership and what should be looking. I can write a book on it, but I'll give you 2 or 3 nuggets. Number one is, how do you deal with polarity? So what I mean by that is, a lot of our leaders are asked, you must save cost, but also create value. You must keep your people happy, but also bring in AI to make people redundant. So there's a lot of polarity going on in the world. So how do you, I call it mixture of opposites. So how do you deal with those mixture of opposites? Are you intellectually savvy and emotionally savvy to deal with that? So that's a big piece. The second piece is, are you digitally savvy? I always say the world is for the learner. The learned sits beautifully equipped to deal with the world that no longer exists. So how do you keep in touch with the white papers, with what's happening around the world, and what's real? Because there is a lot of hype around us. There are a lot of fake news. Because if you read everybody is, a lot of a headcount reduction, and AI is working everywhere. Agentic AI, everything is generative AI. But do we really need a cannon to kill a fly? So do we need generative AI for every single thing that we do? We don't. So therefore, are you technically savvy enough to understand what you need for your business? So that's the second piece. And the third piece is commercially savviness, because every company, doesn't matter where they are, there is margin pressure, there is cost pressure, there is pressure from the shareholders and investors to say, how do you grow your share value? So therefore, you need to understand everything that you do, how does it impact the shareholder value? It's really important to connect that. So these are kind of the 3 things. And in terms of, I'm a great believer that it's less about skill, more about will. So within my organization, I look at, do you have the right attitude? Do you have the hunger to move on? It doesn't make you bad people, but do you have that fire in your belly? Do you use your head, heart, and gut? Head is about data, heart is about empathy, and gut is your experience. Do you use all those 3 to make decisions? Leaders are paid to make decisions, right? So do you have the right decision power? I don't want people to sit and play with data. Yeah, I can do that. What I'm interested is, how do you convert those insights into decisions? Do you have that? That's what I'm after. Everybody is educated in India, and people have a degree, etc. So the knowledge is there. What can I do? I can't sit down with a finance expert and teach them finance, and neither can I do that to a data scientist. They're far cleverer than I am. But the value that I like adding and I'm looking for is that leadership, because I think that's the common denominator that helps everybody.
Final question, Sumit. So, if you were to build a GBS from scratch today, what would that be, and where it will be, and why?
So look, it depends on which company I'm working for. If I'm working for a mostly English-speaking country, I would build it in India, of course. I would take my time. I think people jump into it and then start transitioning roles, and it's random violence. So I would rather look at, what is my strategy? Why does something needs to sit in GBS? Because every business is different. You need to understand the business context and then build together a plan, because you have to earn the right. Sometimes people say, oh, we have a GBS, so everything has to move into GBS. No, You have to earn the right to create that capability in India or wherever it is. So therefore, how do you convince the board and your execs to make sure there is a real journey, and then have a check post to check how you're progressing with the journey. So I would do that plan and have that agreement upfront with the board to say, this is the vision, this is the steps we're going to take, the 3-year journey, and then execute, and then convince the board of value creation and how, through little milestones, through little programs that you're delivering, through return on investments, and build that credibility is really important. And finally, we have taken this slightly further. And I talked about the capability that I have. So one of the things that we've done with Tesco Business Solutions is we've built a number of AI products that we feel, we could white label this and sell it to other retailers who are not competing with us.
Right.
And that's why we created a new business called OmniSolve, which I'm leading now as a second business, which has become a B2B business, and helping other retailers with the skill set which exists within TBS and the AI products that we build. So I call it AI as a service that we deliver to the other retailers.
Love it. Yeah, that's great, because I believe that if you exchange notes with your peers, I mean, it's a collective win for the entire ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Sumit, for joining in, and it was pleasure talking to you. So much to learn from you, and good luck, and looking forward to your next book.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much.